I am Tanya Sharpe. I am the founder and director for the Center for Research and Innovation for Black Survivors of Homicide Victims, aka the CRIB. And 38830 is a series brought to you by the CRIB. 3830 is a weekly Instagram live show where we hold the space for just 30 minutes to have candid conversations about the disproportionate impact of homicide, mass incarceration, and structural violence on some of our most vulnerable communities. Tonight, we are joining you all, or you are joining us via Zoom. So for those of you who have friends who are on IG waiting for us, give them a call, send them a text, tell them to hit the button in Zoom to register and come and join us this evening for a whole hour of good content and kiki. All right. Tonight, again, we are joining you via Zoom, and we have brought back some of our amazing, mic-dropping, prolific, profound guests from this season 5 of 38830, entitled Strange Fruit, addressing a violent erasure of Black bodies. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in the webinar this evening. This webinar is being recorded, and the video will be available on our website at www.the-crib.org/3830. We invite you to revisit the content and share it with colleagues. You will also this evening have the opportunities to submit questions to our panel by typing your questions into the Q&A window. I mean, y'all know how to do this. We've been doing this for a while, like zooming our lives away, but just going over the details. And the Q&A window can be accessed from the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation, and we will collect those questions and do our very best to address as many as we can during the Q&A session, which will be held at the end of our discussion this evening. Also, to production, I'm seeing several members in the chat. Can you make sure our guests, the CRIB community, is taken care of if they need to be led into the room or have questions right away? Thanks so much. We encourage you to use the chat function to interact with other attendees, comment just as you would when we're kiki and haha on IG by posting your comments to all panelists and attendees. And remember to be kind to one another. So this season 5 of 3830, entitled Strange Fruit, the violent erasure of Black bodies, we were intentional. We were intentional about inviting each of you, my lovely friends, to join us this season to not only highlight the passionate, brilliant creativity you bring to the work you do in service to communities, but to also amplify and celebrate your positionality in the work. As Black activists, Black researchers, Black emerging scholars, Black mentors, Black artists, I asked each of you to join us this season because I recognize the purposeful and powerful way you go about doing the necessary work of centering the experiences of Black people so that so that we are not systematically erased. Tonight's discussion, entitled Root Causes, Consequences, and Solutions, is designed to provide our viewers with further clarity about the root causes and consequences of systematically erasing Black history, Black thought, Black wealth, Black voice, Black joy, Black freedom, Black grief, Black spirit, Black life. To that end, or perhaps it's the beginning, I would like us to also offer our audience solutions relevant to the ways we can work across disciplines, communities, countries to prevent and address the traumatic impact of being erased. Now, without further ado, in the order of these episodes, each episode, and if you missed it, y'all check out Instagram Live. Their major, amazing episodes are recorded and stored there. Shout out to Dr. Kamisha Siblis, who could not join us this evening. But we do have Asia Ivy, who is rejoining us from her episode. Asia is a PhD candidate in sociology at the University of California, Davis. She is a UC HBCU fellow and an alumni of the Robert Wood Johnson Health Policy Research Scholars Program. Currently, Asia works as a graduate research for the Violence Prevention Research Program, co-authoring a report on community violence intervention programs. She also led the development of a research commentary on CVI's role in mitigating structural violence in urban schools. As an alum of the Robert Wood Johnson Health Policy Research Scholars Program, she received training in translating research for policymakers, understanding stakeholders' motivations, and practiced policy pitches with legislative members while writing op-eds related to her research. I'm not sure. Production, can you tell me if Rico has arrived?
Rico is in the building.
Rico Suave! I had to. You know I had to, Rico. I had to. Rico is a filmmaker, actor, and humanitarian known for founding Black King Entertainment. Originally a business major, he shifted his focus to filmmaking at age 23 to raise awareness and make a difference. His documentary, Tears in the Bayou, highlighted the impact of gun violence in Houston and garnered worldwide attention. In addition to his filmmaking, Rico is involved in charity work in Tanzania, providing food, mosquito nets, and educational support to children. He's also a leader in the No Shoot Zone initiative, which aims to prevent gun violence in Houston's vulnerable communities, resulting in the declaration of Rico King Day on June 7th in his honor. Y'all, we got to celebrate. Mark your calendars. Rico King's goal is to leave a lasting legacy as a filmmaker who uses storytelling to promote empathy, understanding, and positive societal change. Welcome back, Rico. Dr. Sean McGuffey is an associate professor of sociology, and y'all have seen him before. He just keeps coming back. I'm telling you, he is a dedicated crib faculty affiliate. He's an associate professor of sociology and past director of African and African diaspora studies at Boston College. Dr. McGuffey's work primarily highlights how race, gender, sexuality, and social class both constrain and create the choices survivors pursue in the aftermath of trauma in the US and throughout the African diaspora. His current projects focus on sexual trauma. One examines how gender, sexuality, and race shape parental responses to child sexual abuse, and the other investigates the social psychology of sexual assault survivors in the US, Uganda, South Africa, and Rwanda. His most recent project examines Black LGBT political perspectives. Dr. McGuffey is the recipient of three American Sociological Association section awards, the 2006 Sally Hacker Award for Research Excellence, the 2009 Best Research Article Award, and a 2016 Distinguished Article Award. The Society for the Study of Social Problems honored him with the Kimberly Crenshaw Award in 2016 and in 2022 with the Arlene Kaplan Daniels Award for the Best Article on Women and Social Justice. Welcome back, Sean, Dr. McGuffey. Shawnee. Dr. Shawnee Buggs is a public health and policy researcher and an assistant professor in the Department of Emergency Medicine at the University of California, Davis. Her expertise includes community-level firearm violence prevention programs and policies, transformative first response strategies, and comprehensive approaches to creating community safety through policies and programs at all levels of government. Dr. Buggs has worked with leaders around the US, and this is truth, y'all, to help coordinate and advise violence prevention efforts. In her research, she strives to center the experiences of those most impacted by violence to inform policies that foster equity, safety, and well-being for families and communities. Welcome back, Shawnee. And last, but most certainly not least, Dr. Lee Cornelius. Dr. Lee Cornelius is the Donald Lee Hallowell Distinguished Professor of Civil Rights and Social Justice Studies, He is also the director for the Center for Social Justice, Human and Civil Rights at the University of Georgia. He is a licensed social worker in Maryland with expertise in multicultural, community-based participatory research, survey design, and evaluation research. Dr. Cornelius' research focuses on developing community-responsive, culturally appropriate, educational, attitudinal, and behavioral change interventions, as well as examining the barriers to the adoption of successful interventions by individuals, practitioners, and communities. He is the fifth most cited African-American scholar in social work, and has authored books like Designing and Conducting Health Surveys and A Social Justice Approach for Survey Design and Analysis. In 2019, he received the Carl A. Scott Memorial Lecturer Award for his contributions to social and economic justice. Since 2016, Dr. Cornelius has also hosted the podcast series Voices for Social Justice, covering various social justice issues. Whoop, whoop. I'm going to stop sharing for a second and welcome y'all. Welcome back. So good to see you. You can unmute your mics and talk. I mean, you can kiki. This is just, good to see you. Good to see you all.
Great
Welcome
to see
back.
you, Tanya.
Aww.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm ready. I prepared my questions. It is the season finale. I mean, y'all are brilliant. Y'all were just bringing it on the episode. So let's do it again. So first question, and we can just do round robin, whatever, however if the spirit moves you, let the spirit guide you. So again, I thoroughly enjoyed our interactions this season, and many members of the Crib community have reached out to me directly, sharing how much they enjoyed learning from you all and wanted to continue that learning. Members of the Crib community deeply value our intentional efforts to amplify your work as Black artists, researchers, and activists that inform and uplift the lived experiences of our viewers. So I want to start off with the first question. Each of you in your episode discussed the ways in which your work centers the voices of Black people who continue to experience inexplicable harm. What are the ways we are successfully engaging in conversation about the root causes and consequences of being violently erased, and what approaches still need to be taken to ensure that this work is most impactful in stopping and mitigating these forms of violence? I know, small question. Just go ahead. I'll just sit back and I'm just going to drink for y'all.
Well, if no one will go, I'll start. I think this is a really, really important question, and thinking about how to do it successfully. I don't know if I have an answer for that, but because when I thought about this, I was thinking about what I try to do to help prevent the further erasure of Black folk. And one thing that's really important to me is, as we know, is that Black folk are oftentimes erased in the very questions that we ask. Even when we study Black folk, we're still oftentimes erased because the questions aren't really questions that were derived from us or our communities. So part of what I try to do is that I try to make sure as many Black voices are represented. So I want to make sure that I am intentional about and purposeful in making sure that different parts of Black voices and Black communities are represented in the research process. So I'm going to make sure we're going to include Black folk who come from the North, who come from the South, who come from the global North or the global South. And I'm going to try my best to include women, gender non-conforming people from the LGBT communities, to make sure that when we talk about a Black voice, that we recognize that Black voice is not unitary, that we're going to make sure we have a variety of different voices in the conversation. And I can even say from my own experience, because when I first started doing research, it was very much based in the US, and I thought I was doing intersectionality and doing all this stuff. But as soon as I went to another country, I was like, whoa, I'm missing so much. There are so many Black voices that still aren't being part of that. So for me, when I think about the erasure, it's that not as just that, one, even when we study Black people, I feel like we're oftentimes erased because the questions aren't coming from us or our communities.
Yes.
And sometimes when they are, it's a specific segment of our community, like academics, right?
Right.
A specific segment of that. So trying to branch that out to include people from different economic backgrounds, gender presentations, different countries. So for me, part of that stopping that erasure is to be as inclusive as possible.
It's when you were speaking, I honestly, Shani, I couldn't help it. And I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I could not help but think about the conversation we had in your segment in particular about our brothers and sisters who are violence interrupters, whose brilliance, whose expertise is vital to the prevention and intervention work we do. So yeah, I just wanted to toss that off to you.
Yes, I love Dr. McGuffey's answer. And just to build, I think I agree. I think in terms of successfully engaging, I think we have yet to see successful engagement in any shape, form, fashion consistently. I think there are individuals like Dr. McGuffey who are brilliant in doing their part, but we are still fighting those battles. And one of the things that I talked about last week when we were both together in Chicago for the firearms research conference is how we know that systematically in funding for research, that when people want to investigate topics and issues that are dear to our community, we are systematically less likely to be funded to do that work. And so systematically less likely to be able to do the exact kinds of inclusivity, approaches that Dr. McGuffey talked about. But I think the ways that we approach that are by continuing to bang that drum. I think, for my position as a researcher, it's continuing to make that case that there's systematic erasure in so many different ways in the academy to keep us from being able to successfully ask the questions that are being asked of us as Black researchers from our communities. And then all of the different ways that being inclusive in the ways that Dr. McGuffey talked about are challenged, whether it's, we have limited funds to be able to pay people for their time, and all of the different ways that dissemination and feedback loops are not built into our funding, and we have to go above and beyond. But I think it's incumbent upon me as a researcher, I'll speak in I terms, to keep making that case and to keep challenging the systems so that we can do our best to be inclusive in the ways that Dr. McGuffey talked about.
I'm already jumping out my seat. I'm trying to be chill because I'm a host. But
I triple that.
Can I get an amen? Yes.
Amen.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I triple what the two speakers just came before me just said. With my films, I try to give the community a voice, not even my own opinion. A lot of times we think Black people are monolithic, but we're like super diverse. Like we're probably the most diverse, race on this planet. Whether it's Africa, whether it's America. Baltimore is different from Houston. Houston is different from New York. New York is different from LA. And just try to give everybody a voice, and not only the PhDs, not only the let's say the police departments or the politicians. It gotta be everybody, from bottom up, and that's how I try to do it.
100.
And when thinking about expanding, when thinking about really expanding those voices, as a K-12 scholar, I really think about the power that's in the youth and the importance of expanding their criticality around this work and what it means to bring in those voices to those policy spaces. So introducing youth to YPAR, youth participatory action research, giving them the opportunity to identify the problems and the issues that are in their community, giving them the opportunity to research and to learn who are the most relevant stakeholders, and allowing them to engage with the work on the ground and be the ones at those legislative tables, at the town halls. And then we're really expanding who is in that work and who is really giving power to what's going to happen in the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years.
They're the future. Dr. Lee, round us up.
You know, there's just and everyone is rich with energy, and I'm just loving it. And one of the things that just sit with, and I want to talk about the power of language, and I don't mean rhetoric. You know, the power of our ability to say and own our words in a way that we stick with it, right? And what do I mean by that? Like, I hear words about abolition and liberation, and then I hear people in the heady spaces talking, and folk on the ground like, I don't understand what you're talking about because you're not genuine. And so one of the things I keep hearing in community spaces is about genuine. And I want to just quickly talk about anti-colonialism. Like, yeah, I hear conversation, but then when you deal with professionals who benefit from the power structures, then they're not really serious, because to really put yourself out, you have to worry about losing your job.
Yeah.
Last quick thing, like with our communities, they're just tired of foolishness. They really are. They're tired of folk who just want to talk and not really listen. So much trauma, so much hurt. And they want to know, are you really going to be with me 5 and 10 years down the road? And so with this space, you know, we have to be okay that they're going to test us, because it's part of the program, and it's not about me, it's about us collectively.
Yeah. What is the quote? I don't believe what you say because I see what you do.
Yeah, Baldwin.
Right, Baldwin. right, Baldwin. And those conversations that I've had with community partners who ask those tough questions, I so appreciate it, because only then through that conversation, I learn a whole lot. I can redirect if I've made mistakes, but they also get an opportunity to see and hear, when I respond to those questions, who I am and where I'm coming from, and how, despite the systems, including university systems, educational systems, healthcare systems that have done despicable harm, that I'm just not going to operate that way, because that's the choice that I'm making. So I do appreciate those conversations.
One more thing too before we go on, because it made me think about one of the things I've constantly had to deal with is you know the type of work that I do, is that so many of our grants, they're time specific, right? So you get like an X amount of time to do it, because they want you to go in, get the good stuff, and bounce, right? And if you want to do that lasting change, like we need to find, and I have not learned how to do this. I would, if anyone could help me figure this out, to commit our universities as, no, the grant can't be 5 years. It needs to be 15, 20, 25, 30 years, because like it needs to be sustained. Like that's exactly what they don't want. They don't want me to bounce in for 5 years and then bounce out. For the first 2 years, we just get to know each other. You know, it's like a new relationship. We're just getting to know each other. You don't even get to the good stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, you got to be okay with, if someone says, I believe in so-called community-based participatory research, and they say, I don't want to be Barbara, and 20 years pass, right? The concept of time in multicultural communities is different than the linear model. I love what you're saying, is like, you really need to have a more sustainable pipeline of support if you're serious about transformation. And what we're seeing is that our funders are not serious. And why do we spend billions of dollars? I notice, I'll stop. Why do we spend billions of dollars on research and not see transformation? Look at the whole thing about the Surgeon General. Heck, Heckler's report on Surgeon General report 1980, 2010, you find that homicide was still in the top 10 30 years later after billions of dollars of research. So like everyone, let's stop playing.
Yeah, right. I'm going to pin it because I have more to say about also built into the research in terms of addressing structural inequities, which contributes, but I won't. I'll hold. What challenges? So to that end, I think we're here, actually. We're here, but I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. So let me just ask the question. What challenges do you encounter in your field profession when addressing the erasure of Black bodies, voices, experiences, histories, and knowledge? And how do you overcome these barriers? We've talked about funding. We've talked about the way funding is structured. We've talked about the lack of funding for Black researchers to establish relationships. But is there more, and how do we overcome these barriers?
I'm going to be real funky. I'll talk about a problem and a solution. One of the biggest problems I would face, I'll call it the bullseye target, where somebody doesn't want to do work and they'll say, hey, here's something that we want you to do while you're out there busting your tail. And they don't want to either join in on this piece and do something collaborative, right? So they're not really serious about participating in the process, but they want to point you out as the lucky soul to be the target that runs around the planet, and we just knock them off, and then they sit around with their hands under their seat.
Dr. Lee, I'll do you one better, though. Let's call a thing a thing. Oftentimes, Black researchers are invited to those spaces because of the color of our skin, and not listed as co-PIs, not listed as, you know what I mean? I mean, there's that part too.
Money talks and whatever walks, right? I'll just stop right there and let my friends join in.
Sorry, I had to.
I love sport.
My tongue. Go ahead.
In my industry, just get tired of people who aren't Black telling me how to represent Blackness on screen.
Ouch. I feel hurt. I'm gonna start my mouth. I feel hurt.
That just hurt. That hurt my soul. Like that hurt my soul.
I have evenings, where that really pains me and hurts me, and sometimes you have to like tone it down just to get the funding or to get the team in there. But man, I have some vent sessions with my fellow Black folks and stuff like that in the industry. But how we gonna overcome that is support the Black producers and get in spaces that are historically white, and support each other as much as we can. You know what I mean? Because it's rough out there for a Black man.
You mean like show up to events rather than be in the audience? Because you hear about folk out there on stage and they're like, I see everybody else, but I don't see my folk here. Really,
right. And then
right.
Sometimes, like I had a situation where the broadcaster is telling me I need a Black producer, and their recommendations, we're shooting a movie about the most marginalized communities, and I'm like, just because this person is Black doesn't mean they understand what goes on in this marginalized community. It's like that's kind of racist. So you're saying all Black people must be hood.
Oh my God.
I can go on for days, but I'm gonna just let somebody else pick it up.
I can't. I'm okay. Any other comments?
Well, I feel like I'm talking too much, but one of the things that I've started to be doing, I think, is strategically about the sustainability. Because I really don't like this little 4 or 5 year grant, which feels like 4 or 5 minutes in the long
right, it does.
And first of all, I keep getting like, so Rico King, I saw your movie last week. It was great. I'm using it for my class. So
great.
We'll be using it next week in my class.
Look at this.
I think because if you're working in the academy, and what I'm trying to do is thinking about how to work around these systems. So when I'm applying for a grant, I try to put my grants in a certain category. Because I apply for a whole bunch, and you hope you get one. I'm already thinking about if I get one of the grants in this category, here's the grant I need to be thinking about 4 years now when this money starts to go. And I hate that we have to do that, but like, because if you want to do that sustainability, to keep it going, we constantly have to do that. But what that does, it takes away our time from doing other stuff, right? To keep
100%.
doing that. If our universities and our funding systems would just commit to what I would argue to real transformation rather than going out, figuring out what is going to publish well. If they really were dedicated to real transformation, I wouldn't have to be spending, okay, if I get this grant, I need to apply for this one 2 years later. I need to apply for this one this many later. Because that takes away so much time. That takes away from building our community, because then sometimes you don't get the grant and you're gone from the community, and then you come back 3 years later, you have to you're not starting from the beginning, but it takes a long time to get those relationships go back together, because sometimes you lose trust, and it's valid. It's a valid loss, right?
Right.
Because our systems are not really built for, obviously, university systems, funding systems aren't really built for sustainability of Black communities. It's just or marginalized communities.
They're not built for the sustainability of Black communities, but they're also not built for the sustainability of Black researchers, because the other things that, let me just name a few, the other things that we're being asked to do are the markers and milestones by which we are being measured for success. And so we make choices at a sacrifice, which is what I was just telling my students. Yes. I will gladly do it, because I am very clear that the degree that I got was in service to the community, not the institution. So as long as I keep that in front and center, I'm making conscious choices, though, about that, the cost of that. I may not move along the tenure track as quickly as other folk. The other thing I want to invite into the space, and I want to be clear about this, I agree with you all 150%. But it has forced me, the structures have forced me to get real creative about how I go about leaving the communities better off than when I arrived. For example, when I think about the development of the Cribs Neighborhood Ambassadors Program, that just came out of me saying, these folks are experts. They're experts in the community already doing the work. They should be compensated as such. So without a grant, just created the program, but the whole goal is they're getting training on ethics, they're getting training on how to do qualitative, quantitative research. They're engaging with other research centers so that when the Crib has no more money, they got flow, they got jobs, they can do all the things, and they've made all those connections. And so I'm not saying that's in place of it, but I just had to get really innovative and creative about how to create sustainable change when people are like, the way to prevent violence is for me to have money in my pocket.
You know, I would agree and push that a tad for folk who are coming up in the system and they want to start and become these new researchers. And part of what, you know, somebody did something so you can get there. So you have to think, it's not just that you're getting a grant, it's how you're putting in those things like the ambassadors, or doing some training and mentoring of youth to encourage them to go down that pipeline so that you keep moving it forward. I think about like mentors telling the other folk, hey, you got to keep this action going. There's a wealth in terms of human wealth that has to be invested in the transformation process.
Well said. Well said. On fire. So I want another question that actually Shani just mentioned. So Shani and I just came back from the National Research Conference for the Prevention of Firearm-Related Harms. And there was a great deal of discussion about the role of technology, AI. Actually, a very good friend, colleague, Desmond Patton was the keynote and just laid it. He's just amazing, and incorporating a lot of work and engagement on social media platforms. But there was a great deal of discussion about the role of technology in helping us to understand and respond to firearm injury and fatality. I know, y'all. Just stay with me. The question's gonna make sense. I promise. Just hold your mule. It got me thinking about the future and looking toward, again, innovative ways we might incorporate the use of technology to understand and respond to the erasure of Black bodies. So I'd like to get your take on this. Does technology have a role to play in our activism? And what might be the challenges and successes in using technology?
Yep. I love that question. And so I think build a couple things. Building on, yes, technology has a role. Let me start there. Short answer, yes. I think that, so building on the last conversation around the challenges and overcoming the barriers, I very much appreciate the dialogue of the different ways that we as individuals, or that you all as individuals, as esteemed scholars and activists, have gotten creative about how to overcome the barriers. I came into this, although I am not a spring chicken, I came into this work as a researcher later in life, and my tolerance for the systemic barriers is lower than, because I wasn't raised up in the system. And I also see that the younger generation, in so many different ways, is bucking lots of systems, because they're like, nah. Like, why? I'm not, why would I do that? Because you did it, why would I do it that way? Like, why would I work so much harder than everybody else? Why would I do all of this, so, for, and overextend myself? Not that the passion and centering of community is any less, but there is a push against overextending and having to bend over backwards and matrix our way through to be successful. And so I think the way that all of that to say, technology plays a role in that regard, in helping to bring light to the challenges that individuals are facing. Because as you were seeing, if you're facing that challenge, and I'm facing that challenge, and Asia's facing that challenge, and if we're all facing these challenges, technology allows for us to see, wait a minute, why are we all doing this? We can collectively come together. And that's another role of technology, is allowing for the unification of voices, allowing for social movements to escalate and proliferate in a way that we have not seen before. I also think that technology plays a critical role in organizing. It plays a critical role in amplifying the voices that have been marginalized, because now everybody got one of these.
Yeah.
So anybody can start a YouTube page, anybody can start an Instagram, have an Instagram profile, anybody can TikTok, like anybody, you have access in ways that there used to be so much more gatekeeping. And now with social media and technology, that access has really, the bar for access has been lowered tremendously. Now, of course, technology plays a number of harms as well, right? And violence, that was part of the conversation, part of the presentation of Dr. Patton, was recognizing that technology can also be used, and has been used, in harmful ways to escalate violence. And in the same ways that it's also used to amplify grief and joy and humanity and the complexity of our lives, right? So I think the ways, and I would love, I have speaker's privilege, I would love to get future Dr. Ivy in on this too, because I know Dr. Ivy's work very much centers around how educators have utilized technology to circumvent the systematic erasure of Black voices and Black bodies in education. But I think that technology really can play an important role in amplifying voices, and it can amplify harm, and we've seen that happen, but it can also amplify success and amplify power, and power, access, and agency, for us to determine a new future, so that we're not continuing to try to figure out these creative backbending ways of circumventing the systems.
Very powerful. I just had a couple things. I mean, just wonderful what you said. Two things. We sit in the illusion of the technology that, you know, is democratized. We have access, and I always think of that statement. You know, particularly when you think about YouTube and TikTok, when you don't pay for the product, you are the product. And this whole idea of how you have Google and other mechanisms using ads or what have you to taper the systems to motivate human behavior. So we have to be aware both about the technology and the way that the system is being used. And I love what you were saying about, yes, we could use it as a power mechanism for virtual advocacy and what have you. Yet we have to be very, I think the word is intentional about the engagement with technology and center our power around that, and to be careful about how what we put out there now belongs to somebody else. And it will now have a life that goes a long time down the road, and you may look at this 40 years from now and say, oh crap, did I really do that? Really?
The speaker at the conference, Desmond, Dr. Patton, I remember he was elaborating on exactly what you were talking about, and and cautioned, was optimistic. I think Ashani has shared with us this evening, but also talked about the ways in which those same youth that Asia was talking about can be involved in the development of said technology, so that the use of language and vernacular and space and place is culturally responsive to the communities that are engaging with said technology. So yet again, the erasure of us cannot also be in the realm of technology, I think, for sure. Rico, I feel like, no, you good? Nothing?
I mean, first thing comes to mind is of course, like I was just in the hospital room with a 16-year-old who got shot in his head. He's been in the hospital for about 2 months, and I give him company when he's going through his rehab. And this all started on social media, but he's an innocent bystander. And unfortunately, it's the second time he's an innocent bystander. First time he was 8 years old, you know, and he's still smiling. But I think the negativity, you know, that technology, social media brings, can be taken care of if we take care of the root causes of violence. You know what I mean? There's a lot of kids who love rap music, play a lot of violent video games, but they got a structure to keep them in place where they don't have to carry this stuff out in, you know, actuality. You know, so just taking care of the root causes, we could, you know, significantly decrease the amount of negativity from social media or technology. But, you know, I benefited from having the technology because I don't need like 20 people to make a film. You know what I mean? We could all be in this room. We don't have to fly in to meet with each other. You know, so there's good stuff and bad stuff. And I think as long as we take care of the root causes, we're in a good place. With watching what Dr. Cornelius just said.
Yeah,
it's true.
So I cannot believe, but it is 9:20. Like I don't know where, and I want to give the crib community a chance to ask questions. So I'm just going to end with this final question, which I got from our time spent together, Dr. Lee, where you mentioned during the episode, which really stayed with me, that the conversation we're having right now is not necessarily for today. It's for 40 years from now. So with this in mind, how are we planting the seeds for future Black researchers and activists and thought leaders, what does, or rather should be, the future look like when addressing the violent erasure of Black communities? What should be our call to action?
You know, I mentioned a quick comment. I'm actually going a slightly different direction because now we have some things out that were kind of lectures 40 and 50 years ago, you know, like James Baldwin and Nikki Giovanni and whatnot. We need to have those kind of provocative meeting and tough conversations out here on the internet that has a life that will reappear decades from now. You know, we need to have the kind of think tank, brain trust kind of real tough encounter events. And they occur in conferences, but we need to have it in a way that is available and disseminated and that it could sit out there.
I think that's what we're doing now.
Like, I would hope.
I would hope too.
That's one thing I really appreciate about the crib is that it provides these spaces like this. But I also would like, and I hope not putting someone on the spot, but I am putting someone on the spot. But I was wondering to know what Asia, what you think about this? Like, as I think about you're the future, right? Like, what do you need to see from us? Like, you know, what do you need to see from us so that you have everything you need to shine in the future? Because, like, you know, you are really going to be the one that's like going to be taking us on. So, like, what would you need to see from us so that you can thrive and be the very best researcher, activist that you can be?
Yeah, I think these questions and these conversations have to start becoming a lot more global and a lot more, like you said earlier, a lot more inclusive. You know, you can't discuss Palestine without discussing the Congo, without discussing Sudan, without discussing Hawaii. And so it's like, until we have these conversations around anti-Blackness, anti-darkness as a global issue that's really rooted in this idea of global racial capitalism, and until we can unify around this idea around anti-darkness and really understand the power in unifying the global majority, I think until that happens, we're going to still be stuck in this oppression Olympics that continues to hinder the work and the progress.
We can go. We can cut right now. You said all the things.
Fade the black, baby.
I mean, hello.
We can all leave the room now, sister.
Ain't no typing that. Ain't no typing that.
I just don't do my job. Sorry, folks. I'm leaving.
What is there to say? Do you all have questions? Because I don't have any questions. I don't. That's
whatever the question is, Asia already gave us the answer for it.
Feel like when you finish yapping, I'm gonna drop the mic.
Oh my gosh.
Thanks.
Sis, come through. That's it. That comment and nah. That's the whole thing. All right. Oh my God. I don't even want to. Do we have to ask? I mean, okay. So I'm sorry. There's a question in chat. Let me honor the crib community. Let me just get right, because that was okay. Let me get centered. Crib community, if you have questions, please put them in the chat. Q&A chat. We're watching and monitoring both of those. The first question I think is, scenario. Picture it. Nice, Sicily. I'm sorry, I had to do that for Golden Girls. Sorry. You receive a 10-year unlimited dollar amount. You receive a 10-year unlimited dollar amount grant. Which obstacles would you choose to tackle that would result in lasting change? That's from Victoria, a regular crib community follower.
You know, thank you. I put the script. The first thing I would want to find out is what my community would want.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter what I want. It's really what they would want, and in a way that would be meaningful and erasure and deal with some of the things that Aisha was saying. It's like, where do we need to go? It's a fantastic question.
Truly.
And that would empower the community, you know? And empowerment is part of step number one.
something I like the idea of unlimited money and unlimited funds. Really great, because what I tried to do with my limited funds is that I do my best to, one, don't hire academics. Like, it's one of the things. I think so. No, I'm being honest. I've had to really struggle with this because a lot of our grants, they want us to train our grad students, but I think is important. But I also think it's more important if we train the people in those communities so they don't need me there, so they don't need the grad students to be there. So what I would like to do with unlimited funds is saying, let me train you so you don't need to see me ever again. Let me train you so you can write your own grant, so you can come here and you figure out what questions you need, you figure out how to, because you know this community a lot better than I do. So if I had unlimited funds, that's the first thing I would do, is like I would train the community so that I no longer need it. Like, that's what I think I would do, because what oftentimes happens is that what the knowledge, because I believe in community knowledge. And I also believe that we have things to bring too, as someone who's academically trained. We do have a certain amount of training on the skills. So if we can find a way so that the people in those communities who already have the lived experience and the experiential knowledge also have the training, we don't even need to exist anymore. Like that's what I would like to do, is like train them so we are not needed.
I love that. I love that. My goal is to work my way out of business.
Yeah.
Yep. And all that I would add, and maybe it's part of Dr. McGuffey's work, is the organizing piece. So I would, if I'm just dreaming, it would be money also for like unlimited resources for people to organize, so that people could devote the time to harness the collective power, because that is what we have been deprived of systematically, is being stripped of the belief that our voices matter and that we can come together as a people and push against the systems. And so it would be building in also the I was going to call it the luxury, if I'm working with unlimited resources here, the ability to have funds dedicated for people to organize and commit to having the time to organizing and coming together and figuring out how to exactly, as Dr. Lee said, what is it the community wants? As Dr. McGuffey said, what is it they need? What do they need to be trained on? What do they want to change? And then having the resources and the capacity to be able to collectively push for that.
Can I give one quick example?
Go ahead, Sean.
Real quick. So, a lot of my work deals with sexual violence in the African diaspora. So we had some money surprisingly left over in our research we were doing in South Africa. And so what we did was we just rented out a space, and we asked some of the survivors what they would want. They wanted to knit, so we got some knitting materials, and we just left them. We just left them there. It's like, there you go. And what happened in that space, like we had spent so much money and time trying to figure out all the mechanisms of how people racially appraise their sexual experience, and like how could this possibly lead to prevention. And in this little bitty space, these women got together and they figured it out. Because a lot of them, not everything, but a really good part, a lot of them are sexually assaulted in their workplace. And so what they in their domestic, and what they figured out is like, hey, how about we have a domestic collective? So it's not just one of us going to clean a house. 4 or 5 of us are going to show up. We could have, and if something happens, we whistle to each other so we know something's going on. And there's 5 of us, so we're only there for 30 minutes. And it was like, we spent all this money trying to figure out all this stuff, and all we did was give them some yarn and a space, and we figured it out. It was like they figured it out. And that's what I'm thinking. The beauty of it all is just like, all this PhD I have, all this stuff, all this training, and all that was needed was some space and some yarn. And that was all that was needed. Yeah.
The answers to healing our communities are there. All we have to do is listen.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go before Asia drops the mic again.
Yeah, I mean, Asia, no, but Asia, did Asia unmute herself?
I might not top what she gotta say.
Rico, you got like 2 minutes because Asia unmuted herself.
I got 45 seconds.
Yeah.
But what I would do, man, like I deal with certain niche of people, you know, that have so much trauma that nobody ever addressed, so much deep trauma. And by the time the bullet goes off, it's like shaking a can of Coke for about 20 years, and the littlest pressure would just blow it up, right? Mm-hmm. So I would hire a social worker for everybody. Like you'd be surprised with what just a morning, good morning, or a hug can do to somebody's life. You know, it's the simplest little thing, you know what I mean? And a lot of people don't have a person to hug in the morning. A lot of people don't have somebody they think that loves them. A lot of people don't know that their life is valuable.
That's real.
That's it.
Thank you, Rika. Asia?
Go ahead.
I was like, there's a question.
Go ahead, drop that nuclear bomb.
What'd you say, Shani? What'd you say?
I would get rid of the paywall around like resources and research around just what has taken place in the resistance that has already happened. I think there's a reason why they're banning books. There's a reason why there's an anti-CRT movement.
Oh my God.
Why they're coming for intellectualism in the way that they are. And I think we're still pushing this narrative that there's a limited amount of resources around resistance when the Ethnic Studies Library exists right there at Berkeley. So there is an abundance of information. Like the blueprints are already out there for how people have resisted and have been able to create and cultivate spaces that are free and that are just. And so I think in disseminating those resources, making those resources readily available, and ensuring that we are translating those resources in a way that is relevant for communities, I think is really important.
I mean, just Asia go have her own show. That's just the show. It's just, I mean, okay, all right. Wow. I mean, we have. Oh no, it's 9:30. Okay. Wow. It's really 9:30. That went by really quickly, which means we just have to find time to do it again. Wow. I am always, when I engage with you all one-on-one, when we had our time together on 30/30, but certainly here today, I always leave the room better off than when I entered it. I always feel intellectually fed, but most importantly, I feel spiritually fed and held. And for that, my friends, I cannot thank you enough. I am so lucky to be on this journey with all of you. And certainly Asia, meeting you for the first time, but now that I know you, girl, you ain't, I mean, you're just now part of the crib community, just deal with it. That's it.
I'm thinking we need to figure out how to get Asia her own institute, because clearly because
clearly we just, I mean, just never up there. Go to dress.
Well, the beautiful thing is it's done. You're carrying the mitre forward. That's the best gift we can be given in life, is to have spirits like you all to just keep it pushing. Right?
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Lee. So, guest panelists, crib community, your passion and commitment to centering the voices of some of our most vulnerable communities is unparalleled. And so again, I thank you. I thank you for being a part of season 5 for 3830. Crib community, as always, thank you for watching. And from our crib to yours, stay safe and keep well. Good night.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. All right.
Good night.
Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Sharpe.
Thank you, Dr. Sharpe. Thank y'all. Let's see if it does it again. See? I love the hearts. Take care.